The recruitment station on Vexar Prime hummed with the usual chaos of processing day. Thousands of beings from across the Galactic Coalition lined up in neat rows, waiting for their turn at the medical scanners. The facility stretched for miles, a gleaming monument of chrome and glass that processed 50,000 recruits every standard cycle. Captain Thresh stood at his station, his forearms crossed in what any Coalition member would recognize as extreme boredom. The Cravian had been doing this job for 12 rotations, and in all that time, nothing interesting had ever happened. Scan. Clear. Next. That was the rhythm of his days. The female who stepped up to his scanner looked unremarkable. She stood about average height for the humanoid species, with pale skin and dark hair pulled back into a simple tie. And her eyes were an unusual shade between blue and green, but that was hardly uncommon in the galaxy. She wore the standard civilian clothes of someone from one of the outer colonies. "Name," Thresh said without looking up from his data pad. "Sarah Chen. Colony of origin. New Terra." Thresh typed the information with one hand while gesturing toward the scanner with another. "Step into the medical scanner. It will take approximately 30 seconds. Sarah nodded and moved into the cylindrical chamber. The clear doors hissed shut behind her, and the scanning beams activated, running blue light from her head to her toes and back again. Thresh watched his screen, expecting the usual readout. Species classification, genetic markers, disease screening, combat aptitude prediction. At the standard information that helped the Coalition place recruits in appropriate positions. The screen flickered. Then it turned red. Thresh blinked all 3 of his eyes in rapid succession. In 12 rotations, he had never seen a red screen. Yellow, certainly. Orange occasionally, but never red. Red meant danger. Red meant the system had detected something so severe that the recruit needed to be immediately quarantined or rejected. He leaned closer to the screen, his casual boredom evaporating in an instant. The readout was loading slowly, as if the system itself was struggling to process what it had found. Then, 3 words appeared in bright red letters that made his secondary heart skip a beat. "Earthborn. Do not engage." Thresh stood up so quickly his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. Around him, other recruitment officers were beginning to notice the commotion. The female in the scanner looked calm, even bored, waiting for the process to complete. She had no idea what was happening. "Commander," Thresh said, his voice cracking slightly. "Commander, I need you here immediately." Commander Vril, a massive Thorum with gray scales and shoulders wider than most doorways, looked up from his oversight position. "What is it, Captain? I am quite busy." "Sir, I have an Earthborn." The effect was immediate. Every head in the recruitment hall turned toward Thresh. The background noise of thousands of beings shuffling through lines fell to complete silence. Commander Vril went pale, which for a Thorum meant his scales turned from gray to almost white. "Are you certain?" Vril asked. "Are already moving toward the station with surprising speed for someone his size." "The scanner does not lie, sir." Vril reached the console and stared at the red screen. His mouth fell open. "By the 7 stars," he whispered. "It is true." Inside the scanner, Sarah was starting to look concerned. The process should have finished by now. She could see through the clear walls that something was happening. People gathering around the console, all staring at her with expressions she could not quite read. Fear? Awe? Both? "What do we do?" Thresh asked. "The protocols say do not engage, but she is already here. She has already applied for service." Commander Vril was sweating now, small beads forming on his scaled forehead. "I need to contact High Command. Immediately. Do not let her leave that scanner. Do not engage her in any way. I just keep her there." "Sir, she will want to know what is happening. What do I tell her?" "Tell her anything. Tell her the scanner malfunctioned. Tell her we are running additional tests. Just do not tell her what she is." Vril rushed toward his office, already activating his emergency comm link. Thresh turned back to the scanner where Sarah was now tapping on the glass, clearly confused about the delay. Thresh activated the external speaker with a shaking hand. "Apologies, Miss Chen. We are experiencing a minor technical difficulty with the scanner. Please remain inside for just a moment longer while we resolve this." Sarah frowned, but nodded. Through the clear walls, she could see more officers gathering now, keeping their distance, but watching her with those strange expressions. Some of them were whispering to each other, their alien features betraying various levels of shock and worry. Within minutes, Commander Vril returned, and he was not alone. Behind him strode Admiral Kess, the station commander herself, a tall Zanari with silver skin and eyes that glowed faintly purple. She never came to the recruitment floor. Never. The fact that she was here now told Thresh exactly how serious this situation was. Admiral Kess approached the console and looked at the screen for a long moment. Then she looked at Sarah through the scanner wall. The Admiral's expression was unreadable, but her hands were clasped tightly behind her back in what Thresh knew was a gesture of extreme tension. "How long has she been here?" Kess asked quietly. "She arrived this morning, Admiral." And she filled out the standard application and joined the queue like everyone else. "Did she give any indication that she knew? Any hint that she was aware of what she is?" "No, Admiral. She seemed completely ordinary. Just another colonist looking to serve." Kess was silent for several long seconds. "I have sent an urgent message to High Command. They will want to handle this themselves. For now, we keep her comfortable, and we keep her here. Under no circumstances is anyone to tell her about her genetic heritage until Command decides how to proceed." "Admiral," Thresh ventured carefully, "may I ask what exactly is the danger? The warning says do not engage, but it does not explain why." Admiral Kess turned to look at him, and for the first time, Thresh saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before. It was fear. Pure, undiluted fear. "Captain Thresh," she said slowly, "do you know why Earth was marked as a restricted world 300 cycles ago? I know it was deemed too dangerous for contact, but I do not know the specific reasons. That information is classified above my clearance level." "It is classified above almost everyone's clearance level," Kess said. "But I can tell you this much. Earth was not marked as restricted because the planet itself was dangerous. It was marked as restricted because of what the humans who lived there were capable of. What they had done. What they might do." She gestured toward Sarah, who was now sitting on the floor of the scanner, looking annoyed but patient. "That young woman in there appears harmless. She looks like any other humanoid colonist. But genetically she is pure human, Earthborn. And according to every military analysis we have, every projection, every simulation, humans from Earth are the most dangerous sentient species the galaxy has ever encountered." Thresh felt his blood go cold. But she is alone. One individual. Surely one person cannot be that dangerous. Admiral Kess gave him a look that made him wish he had not asked. 300 cycles ago, before the quarantine, a single human soldier held off an entire Krix raiding party for 6 hours. Just one human. He had no advanced weapons, no support, no backup. When the coalition forces finally arrived, they found 78 dead Krix warriors and one very tired human sitting among the bodies. The Krix are the apex predators of the Andromeda sector. They have never been defeated in ground combat, except by that one human. She paused, letting that sink in. That was not even their military elite. That was just a regular soldier. We have no idea what their special forces were capable of because we never wanted to find out. When the Coalition High Council made the decision to quarantine Earth, it was not to protect us from them. It was to protect them from what we might force them to become. "I do not understand," Thresh said. "If they were that powerful, why did we quarantine them? Why not recruit them? Because humans do not fight like any other species, Captain. They do not fight for territory or resources or honor. Humans fight to win. Completely, utterly. They do not accept defeat, they do not surrender, and they do not stop until the threat is eliminated. When faced with extinction, humans do not become cautious, and they become exponentially more dangerous. Admiral Kess looked back at Sarah through the scanner wall. The records from before the quarantine describe humans as a species that evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most other beings. Their planet tried to destroy them with ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, predators that should have driven them to extinction. Instead of dying, they adapted. They thrived. They turned every threat into a tool, every weakness into strength. Thresh was having trouble processing this information. The female in the scanner looked so normal, so unremarkable. She was reading something on her personal data device now, completely unaware of the panic her presence was causing. "What will High Command do with her?" he asked quietly. "I do not know," Admiral Kess admitted. "This has never happened before. We have intercepted human colony ships before they left their sector. We have maintained the quarantine strictly, but we have never had a pure human simply walk into a recruitment station and volunteer for service. The protocols do not cover this scenario. Could we not simply explain to her that she cannot serve, send her back to her colony? And tell her what? That her species is so dangerous we quarantined her entire homeworld? That we have spent 3 centuries keeping humanity contained because we are afraid of what they might do? How do you think she would react to that information, Captain?" Thresh had no answer. He was beginning to understand the impossible situation they were in. If they told her the truth, they risked angering her. If they lied, they risked her discovering the truth on her own. Either way, they had a human who now knew the Coalition was treating her differently than everyone else. "Admiral," Commander Vril said, approaching from his office, "High Command has responded. They are sending a special envoy. She should arrive within 6 hours. Until then, we are to keep the human comfortable and contained. They specifically ordered us not to alarm her or give her any reason to believe she is being treated as a threat." 6 hours, Kess repeated. "Very well. Thresh, release her from the scanner. Tell her there was a malfunction and we need to do a manual check of her medical records. Take her to processing room 7. Make sure it is comfortable. Offer her refreshments. Keep her calm." "Yes, Admiral." Thresh approached the scanner controls with trembling hands. He pressed the release button, and the doors hissed open. Sarah stood up, brushing off her pants and looking at him with mild irritation. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "That took a lot longer than 30 seconds. "My apologies, Miss Chen," Thresh said, trying to keep his voice steady. "The scanner experienced a malfunction. We will need to conduct a manual review of your medical data. If you would follow me to one of our processing rooms, we can complete your application there." Sarah sighed but nodded. "All right, lead the way." As she followed him through the facility, Thresh could feel every eye in the recruitment hall watching them. Word had spread quickly. Everyone knew what was walking among them now. The crowd parted without being asked, creating a wide path as if afraid to get too close. Sarah noticed, of course. She was not stupid. Why is everyone staring at me?" she asked quietly. "The scanner malfunction caused quite a stir," Thresh lied. "Such things are rare. They are simply curious." She did not look convinced, but she did not press the issue. They reached processing room 7, and Thresh gestured for her to enter. The room was comfortable with soft seating and a view of the gardens outside. It was designed to put nervous recruits at ease. "Please, make yourself comfortable," Thresh said. "Can I get you anything? Water? Food?" "Water would be good, thanks," Sarah said, settling into one of the chairs. Thresh fetched a container of purified water and handed it to her. She took it with a small smile of thanks, completely unaware that the simple act of accepting the container had made him flinch. He was afraid to get too close to her, even though she had done nothing threatening. "So," Sarah said, taking a sip of water, How long is this going to take? I was told the whole process would be done by midday. We are working as quickly as we can, Thresh assured her. There are just some additional verifications we need to complete. Standard procedure when the scanner has issues. Sarah leaned back in her chair, studying him with those unusual blue-green eyes. Thresh felt like she could see right through him, could sense that something was wrong. Humans were perceptive. The records had mentioned that too. They could read body language and emotional states with uncanny accuracy. You seem nervous, she observed. It has been a busy day, Thresh said quickly. Many recruits to process. Right, Sarah said, but her tone suggested she did not quite believe him. And the next 6 hours were going to be very long indeed. The special envoy from High Command arrived exactly 6 hours later in a sleek diplomatic shuttle that landed on the station's private docking platform. Admiral Kess met her personally, which was unusual enough to draw attention from the senior staff. The envoy was a Selenar, one of the ancient species that had founded the Galactic Coalition thousands of cycles ago. She had skin that shimmered like mother of pearl and eyes that held the weight of centuries. Her name was Counselor Meredith, and she carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who had seen empires rise and fall. Where is she? Meredith asked without preamble as she stepped off the shuttle. Processing Room 7, Counselor. She has been waiting patiently, though she is clearly suspicious that something unusual is happening. Has she made any threats? Shown any signs of aggression? None whatsoever. She has been perfectly polite. Captain Thresh reports that she spent most of the time reading on her data device and asking occasional questions about when the processing would be complete. Meredith nodded slowly. Good. That gives us some room to work with. Take me to her. They walked through the facility, drawing stares from everyone they passed. Word of the Earthborn had spread throughout the entire station by now. Security had been quietly increased, though Admiral Kess had been careful to keep it subtle. She did not want Sarah to notice armed guards gathering around her location. When they reached Processing Room 7, Meredith paused at the door and took a deep breath. I will speak with her alone, she said. Counselor, are you certain that is wise? Perhaps security should be present. If she wanted to harm us, Admiral, security would not stop her. The old records are very clear on that point. No, if we are going to resolve this situation peacefully, it must be through honest conversation. I have dealt with difficult diplomatic situations before. I can handle one human. Meredith entered the room, and Admiral Kess watched through the observation window that Sarah could not see from her position. Inside, Sarah looked up from her data device and stood politely as the counselor entered. Miss Chen, Meredith said, her voice calm and measured. My name is Counselor Meredith. I apologize for the delay in your processing. It is all right, Sarah said, though her expression suggested otherwise. Though I have to say, this is taking much longer than I was told it would. Is there a problem with my application? Meredith sat down across from her and gestured for Sarah to do the same. There is something we need to discuss, something that our initial screening revealed about your background. Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. What about my background? The medical scanner detected something unusual in your genetic markers, something that requires special consideration in your application for military service. I am healthy, Sarah said firmly. I passed all the medical requirements for New Terra when my parents emigrated there. I have no genetic diseases or defects. This is not about disease, Meredith said carefully. It is about heritage. Sarah, do you know where your family came from originally? Before New Terra? Sarah shrugged. My parents never talked much about it. They said we came from an old colony that was not worth remembering. They wanted to focus on the future, not the past. Meredith nodded slowly. Your parents were protecting you. Or perhaps they themselves did not know. But the medical scanner does not lie. Sarah, you are not from any ordinary colony. Your genetic markers are pure, unmodified, original human. You are Earthborn. Sarah blinked. Earthborn? I do not understand. Earth is just the old homeworld. Lots of colonies have human populations. Most colony humans have mixed genetic markers from centuries of adaptation and interbreeding with other compatible species. Pure Earth humans are extremely rare. In fact, you are the first one to appear in Coalition space in over 300 cycles. Sarah was starting to look confused and slightly alarmed. Why does that matter? Why would that affect my application? Meredith took a deep breath. Because Earth was quarantined 300 cycles ago, Sarah. It is a restricted world. Contact with pure Earth humans is strictly prohibited under Coalition law. Quarantined? Why? This was the difficult part. Meredith had rehearsed this conversation during the entire shuttle flight, trying to find the right words. How did you tell someone that their entire species had been deemed too dangerous to interact with? The decision to quarantine Earth was made for complicated reasons, Meredith began carefully. In the early days of Coalition expansion, we encountered humanity when you were still in your early space age. Initial contact was peaceful. Humanity seemed like any other developing species. But as we learned more about your people, certain concerns arose. What kind of concerns? Military concerns. Humans evolved on a death world, Sarah. A planet that tried to destroy you at every turn. Ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Most species that face such conditions go extinct. Humans did not. You adapted. You overcame. You turned every threat into an advantage. Sarah was listening intently now, her earlier confusion shifting into something sharper. Understanding, perhaps. Or anger. The Coalition has strict policies about how we interact with developing species, Meredith continued. We guide them, help them join the galactic community, integrate them into our structures. But with humanity, we faced a problem. You were too effective at war, too adaptable, too determined. In every simulation we ran, every scenario we tested, humans proved to be the most dangerous military force we had ever encountered. So you locked us away, Sarah said quietly. You quarantined an entire species because you were afraid of us. It was not fear, Meredith protested, though even she knew that was not entirely true. It was caution, responsibility. The Coalition exists to maintain peace across thousands of worlds. We could not risk introducing a species that might destabilize that peace. And yet here I am, Sarah said. One human who somehow slipped through your quarantine. What are you going to do with me, counselor? Send me back? Lock me up? That is what I came here to discuss. Your situation is unprecedented. You were born on a colony world. You have done nothing wrong. You came here voluntarily, seeking to serve. We cannot simply imprison you for existing. But you cannot let me serve either, Sarah finished, because I am too dangerous. Meredith was silent for a moment. High Command is still debating what to do. But I came here to speak with you directly, to understand who you are beyond your genetic markers, to see if perhaps the old fears were exaggerated. Sarah leaned back in her chair, and for the first time since entering the room, Meredith saw something flash across her face. It was not anger or fear. It was calculation. The human was thinking, processing, analyzing the situation. So let me see if I understand this correctly, Sarah said slowly. The Coalition encountered my species centuries ago. Like you saw that we were good at fighting. Instead of recruiting us, instead of making us allies, you decided we were too dangerous and locked us away. Now I show up wanting to help, wanting to serve, and you do not know what to do with me. That is a simplified version, but essentially correct. Here is what I think, counselor, Sarah said, and there was steel in her voice now. I think the Coalition made a massive mistake. You saw a species that could be valuable allies and instead treated them like a threat. You isolated them, kept them ignorant of the wider galaxy, denied them the chance to grow and contribute. And now you are afraid because you realize that one day that quarantine might fail. One day humans might find out what you did, and they might not be happy about it. Meredith felt a chill run down her spine, and this was exactly what the old reports had warned about. Human perception, human insight. Sarah had dissected the entire situation in moments and identified the Coalition's deepest fear. "What do you want, Sarah?" Meredith asked quietly. "I want the same thing I wanted when I walked in here this morning. I want to serve. I want to make a difference. I grew up on New Terra hearing stories about the Galactic Coalition, about the heroes who protect the innocent and maintain peace across the stars. I wanted to be part of that. I still do." "Even knowing what the Coalition did to your people?" "Even knowing that," Sarah confirmed. "Because maybe I can be the one to prove you wrong. Maybe I can show you that humans are not the monsters you think we are. Maybe I can be the bridge between humanity and the galaxy." Meredith studied her for a long moment. Outside the observation window, she knew Admiral Kess and the others were watching, listening. This conversation would be analyzed by High Command. Every word would be weighed. "I cannot make you any promises," Meredith said finally. "The decision about what to do with you will be made at the highest levels of Coalition government. It may take time, but I will carry your words to them. I will tell them that you came here in peace, seeking to help." "And what happens to me while they debate?" Sarah asked. "You will remain here on the station as our guest. Comfortable quarters, freedom to move about in designated areas, access to entertainment and communication, but you cannot leave." "Not yet." "So I am a prisoner." "You are a complication in a very complicated situation," Meredith said gently, "and we are trying to find the right answer. Give us time, Sarah. Give us a chance to do the right thing." Sarah was quiet for several long seconds. Then she nodded. "All right, I will wait. But, Counselor, you should know something. You should tell your High Command something." "What is that?" "I am not the only one. My parents came from Earth before the quarantine was fully enforced. There were other ships that got out, other families that settled on colony worlds. I might be the first pure human to walk into a recruitment station, but I will not be the last. Eventually, more of us will come. And when we do, the Coalition will have to decide what kind of relationship it wants with humanity. Fear and isolation. Oh, or trust and partnership." Meredith felt her blood run cold. Sarah was right. If there were more humans out there, more Earthborn scattered across the colonies, then the quarantine had already failed. This was not an isolated incident. This was the beginning of something much larger. "I will tell them," Meredith said quietly. "Thank you for being honest with me, Sarah." "Thank you for treating me like a person instead of a threat," Sarah replied. Meredith left the room and found Admiral Kess waiting outside, her face pale. "You heard?" Meredith asked. "Every word," Kess confirmed. "If there are more Earthborn out there in the colonies, if they start coming forward, then we have a very serious problem," Meredith finished. "Or perhaps an opportunity. That human in there is intelligent, reasonable, and wants to help. She could have been angry. She could have lashed out. Instead, she offered to be a bridge. Perhaps we should take her up on that offer." "High Command will never agree to it," Kess said. "The fear runs too deep." "Then High Command will have to overcome their fear," Meredith said firmly. "Because the alternative is creating an enemy where we could have had an ally. And if the old reports are even half true about what humans are capable of when they feel threatened, that is a mistake the Coalition cannot afford to make." 3 weeks later, in the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Coalition High Command, representatives from 100 worlds gathered to debate the fate of one human. The arguments went on for days. Some called for Sarah to be sent back to New Terra and for the quarantine to be reinforced. And others suggested that she represented a chance to finally bridge the gap with humanity. In the end, it was Counselor Meredith who broke the stalemate. She stood before the council and told them what she had seen in Processing Room 7. Not a monster, not a threat, just a young woman who wanted to serve, who wanted to prove herself, who wanted to help. "We face a choice," Meredith said to the assembled leaders. "We can continue to hide from humanity, to treat them as a threat, to isolate them until eventually they discover the truth on their own and judge us for our fear. Or we can take a chance. We can extend the hand of friendship to this one human and see if perhaps the old fears were wrong." "And if the fears were correct?" asked the Crick's representative, his scaled face twisted with concern. "I.e., if she proves to be as dangerous as the records suggest?" "Then we will deal with it," Meredith said. "But I would rather face that danger, knowing we tried to do the right thing, than create an enemy through our own prejudice and fear." The vote was close. Closer than Meredith had hoped. But in the end, the motion passed. Sarah Chen would be allowed to serve in the coalition military, under strict supervision and with regular evaluations. She would be a test case, a proof of concept. If she succeeded, if she proved that Earthborn humans could integrate peacefully into coalition society, then perhaps the quarantine could be reconsidered. When Counselor Meredith returned to Vexar Prime to deliver the news, she found Sarah in her quarters reading about coalition military history. The human looked up as she entered. And Meredith could see the question in her eyes. "Well?" Sarah asked simply. "Congratulations, Recruit Chen," Meredith said with a small smile. "You have been accepted for service in the coalition military. Your training begins next week." Sarah stood up, and for a moment, pure joy crossed her face. Then she composed herself and offered a formal salute. "Thank you, Counselor. I will not let you down." "I know you will not," Meredith said. "But Sarah, you should understand what you are taking on. You will not just be a soldier. You will be a symbol, a representative of your entire species. Every action you take, every decision you make, will be scrutinized. The success or failure of this experiment rests on your shoulders." "I understand," Sarah said, "and I am ready." 6 months later, the recruit Sarah Chen stood at attention in the training yard of the Coalition Military Academy. Around her, other recruits from dozens of species struggled through the obstacle course that their instructors had designed. It was brutal, meant to push them to their absolute limits. Sarah had finished it in record time. Her instructors watched from the sidelines, making careful notes. The human was everything the old reports had said, and more. Faster than she should be, stronger than made sense for her size, more adaptable than any recruit they had ever trained. And most impressive of all, she helped her struggling squad mates, encouraged them, pushed them to succeed. "She is going to rewrite every combat record we have," one instructor muttered to another. "Let her," the other replied, "as long as she is doing it on our side." Word of the Earthborn recruit spread quickly through the coalition military. Some viewed her with suspicion, watching her every move for signs of the aggression they had been warned about. Others were simply curious, fascinated by this representative of the legendary forbidden species. Sarah handled it all with quiet determination. She trained harder than anyone else. She studied longer. She volunteered for the most difficult assignments. And slowly, gradually, she began to change minds. It was during a live combat exercise that everything changed. The training scenario was supposed to be routine, a simple hostage rescue simulation. But something went wrong. The safety protocols failed, and in what should have been a training exercise with simulated weapons became a real firefight when one of the opposition squad members accidentally loaded live ammunition. Chaos erupted. Recruits who had been playing at war suddenly found themselves in actual danger. 2 were hit in the initial confusion, going down with real wounds. The rest scattered, seeking cover, panic setting in. All except Sarah. While others froze or fled, the human recruit moved. She crossed the kill zone in seconds, reaching the two wounded soldiers and dragging them to cover. Then, while medics worked to stabilize the injured, Sarah assessed the situation with a calm that shocked everyone watching. She knew where the shooter was. She could see the panic in her squad mates, and she understood that if someone did not take control of the situation immediately, more people were going to get hurt. "Listen to me," she called out to her scattered squad. "This was an accident, but we can still control it. I need covering fire on my mark. When I move, you move with me. We go together. We end this together. Do you trust me?" There was a moment of hesitation. Then, one by one, her squad mates responded. They did trust her. In 6 months of training, she had earned that trust. What happened next would be studied in military academies for years to come. Sarah coordinated a textbook suppression maneuver, using her squad to provide covering fire while she flanked the shooter's position. She moved with a speed and precision that seemed impossible, crossing ground that should have been certain death. When she reached the panicked recruit with the live weapon, she disarmed him without injuring him and called for immediate medical and psychological support. The entire engagement lasted less than 3 minutes. By the time the instructors could override the exercise and shut it down, it was already over. 2 injured, 1 recruit in shock, but no deaths, no permanent damage. All because 1 human had kept her head and done what needed to be done. In the aftermath, as medics treated the wounded and investigators tried to understand how the safety protocols had failed, Sarah stood at attention before her instructors. She was breathing hard, adrenaline still coursing through her system, but her face was calm. "Recruit Chen," the senior instructor said, and there was something new in his voice. "Respect. What you did today was exceptional. You saved lives. You maintained discipline under fire. And you led when others would have fled." "I did what any soldier should do, sir," Sarah replied simply. "Perhaps," the instructor said, "but you did it better than most soldiers with years of experience could have managed. The old reports about human combat capability were accurate, it seems." Sarah met his eyes. "The old reports were based on fear and assumptions, sir. Today you saw what a human does when properly trained and given a chance to prove themselves. We are not monsters. We are soldiers. We can be your allies if you let us." The instructor was silent for a moment. Then he saluted her, formally, with full military precision. "I believe you, Recruit Chen, and I will make sure High Command knows what I witnessed here today." The report from the training exercise reached the High Council within days. It sparked new debates, new discussions about the human question. But this time, the conversation was different. This time, they were not talking about a threat to be contained. They were talking about a potential to be realized. 6 months after that, Counselor Meredith stood in the Grand Council chamber once again. But this time, she was not there to defend Sarah Chen. She was there to recommend that the Earth quarantine be officially reconsidered and eventually lifted. The human experiment, she argued, had succeeded beyond all expectations. Sarah had proven that Earthborn humans could integrate into coalition society, could serve with honor, could be trusted. "What you feared most about humanity," Meredith told the council, "was their capacity for violence, their effectiveness in combat, their refusal to accept defeat. But those same qualities, I properly directed, properly supported, make them the finest soldiers the coalition has ever seen. They do not fight for conquest. They fight to protect. They fight to save lives. They fight to win, yes, but they fight for the right reasons." The vote to begin the gradual lifting of the Earth quarantine passed with a significant majority. It would be a slow process, carefully managed, with humans being integrated into coalition society in controlled numbers. But it would happen. The 300-cycle isolation was coming to an end. Sarah Chen, newly promoted to lieutenant and assigned to an elite coalition peacekeeping unit, stood in Counselor Meredith's office when she heard the news. The older Selenar smiled at her, pride evident in her ancient eyes. "You did it," Meredith said simply. "Ah, you showed them that humanity deserves a place among the stars." "We did it," Sarah corrected gently. "You took a chance on me when no one else would. You fought for this when it would have been easier to maintain the status quo. This victory belongs to both of us." "What will you do now?" Meredith asked. "You could return to Earth when the quarantine lifts, meet your people, see your true homeworld." Sarah shook her head. "Earth can wait. Right now, I have a duty to the Coalition. I have squadmates who depend on me, missions to complete, lives to protect. I chose this path. I intend to walk it." Meredith nodded, understanding. "Then walk it well, Lieutenant. You carry the hopes of 2 civilizations now. That is a heavy burden,